She shouldn't have noticed him at all that night. But the moment Riley saw the three men walk in wearing suits too expensive for a Tulsa roadside diner at 11 p.m., every instinct in her body screamed danger. The coffee pot trembled in her hand. The air changed. And when the fourth man followed them in, dark hair, darker eyes, blood soaking through his white shirt beneath his jacket, she knew whatever came next would either save her life or end it. Before we go on, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Riley Hart had spent 26 years learning how to disappear in plain sight. How to smile through exhaustion at truck drivers and traveling salesmen. How to count tips twice because every dollar mattered when you were 3 months behind on rent and your daughter's asthma medication cost more than groceries. How to work the graveyard shift at a diner off Route 66 where the neon sign flickered like a dying heartbeat and nobody asked your name twice. She'd grown up in Oklahoma trailer parks where tornadoes were more predictable than paychecks. Where her mother worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep the lights on. Where Riley learned at 16 that survival meant swallowing your pride, your dreams, and sometimes your last meal so your kid sister could eat instead. By 18, she was pregnant. By 19, alone. By 20, she understood that the American dream her high school teachers talked about was something that happened to other people. People born on the right side of the highway, in the right zip code, with the right last name. She'd named her daughter Lily, 6 years old now, staying with Riley's neighbor in their apartment complex in North Tulsa while Riley pulled double shifts to make up for the hospital bill from Lily's pneumonia last winter. The bill that had turned into collections calls, that had turned into threats, that had turned into sleepless nights staring at a ceiling that leaked when it rained, wondering how the hell she was supposed to keep choosing between medicine and rent. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and old grease. The kind of place where the menu hadn't changed since Reagan was president and the vinyl booths were held together with duct tape and prayers. Riley had worked there for 4 years. She knew every customer by their order. She knew which booths the lonely ones chose. She knew the sound of an engine pulling in before the headlights even hit the windows. Tonight felt different. The clock above the counter said 11:47 p.m. 2 truckers sat at the far end nosing cold coffee. An older woman dozed in the corner booth, her bus ticket to Amarillo folded on the table. The radio played low, some country station out of Oklahoma City talking about a storm system moving in from the west. Then the bell above the door chimed. Riley looked up from wiping down the counter and felt her stomach drop. The first man through the door moved like violence waiting to happen. Broad shoulders, dead eyes, hands in his pockets in a way that suggested he was holding something he'd use without hesitation. East Coast accent when he spoke. New Jersey, maybe. Or Boston. The second man was shorter, meaner. Tattoos crept up his neck. Riley had grown up around men like him, the kind who hurt people because they enjoyed it, not because they had to. The third man stayed by the door, watching, silent, and then the fourth man entered. He walked like gravity bent around him, like the world adjusted its axis to accommodate his presence. Tall, dark hair pushed back, a face that belonged in magazines or courtrooms or places Riley would never see. His suit probably cost more than her car. Blood seeped through his shirt on the left side, just below his ribs. Their eyes met across the diner. Riley's hand froze on the counter. The coffee pot dripped onto the tile. The radio crackled with static. He didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't threaten, just looked at her with the kind of exhaustion that transcended pain, the look of a man who'd been running so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stop. The first man, the violent one, scanned the diner with cold calculation. His gaze lingered on the truckers, on the sleeping woman, on Riley. She forced herself to smile, to move, to become what she'd always been good at being, invisible, harmless, beneath notice. "Evening, gentlemen," she said, voice steady despite her racing heart. "Sit any way you like. Kitchen closes in 20 minutes, but coffee's still hot." The injured man moved toward the corner booth, the one farthest from the door, where his back would be to the wall and he could see everything. He slid into the seat with careful precision, one hand pressed to his side. The others followed. Riley approached with menus and water glasses, years of waitress instinct overriding terror. Don't stay at the blood. Don't ask questions. Just do your job and disappear. Coffee? She asked. The injured man's voice was quiet, controlled. Water. And whatever you've got that doesn't take long. His accent was American, but polished, like someone who'd spent time on both coasts, in boardrooms and courtrooms, in places where power was a language and money was the only dialect that mattered. Burgers are fastest, Riley said. Fries on the side. Fine. The others ordered the same. Riley wrote it down, hands steady, then walked back toward the kitchen, feeling their eyes on her back like crosshairs. She pushed through the swinging door and leaned against the prep counter, breathing hard. Through the small window, she could see them talking in low voices. The injured man sat very still, his face pale but controlled. The others leaned in close, urgent. Riley's cook, a 60-year-old veteran named Roy who'd seen action in the Gulf, glanced up from the grill. "Those boys trouble?" he asked quietly. "I don't know yet," Riley whispered. "But yay, probably." Roy nodded slowly. "Want me to call the cops?" Riley thought about the blood on the man's shirt, about the way the others moved like soldiers or criminals or something worse, about the fact that she'd grown up in neighborhoods where calling the cops made things worse, not better. "Not yet," she said. "Just make the food fast." She delivered their water and coffee, keeping her eyes down, her movements efficient. The injured man didn't look at her. He stared out the window toward the parking lot, where a black SUV sat under the flickering streetlight. Riley retreated behind the counter and busied herself with refilling napkin dispensers, clearing tables, anything to look occupied while her mind raced. The truckers paid and left. The older woman's phone alarm went off. Her bus. She shuffled out into the night. Now it was just Riley, Roy in the back, and 4 dangerous men in the corner booth. The radio cut to a weather alert. Severe thunderstorm warning for Tulsa County. Heavy rain expected within the hour. Riley's hands shook as she poured herself a glass of water. That's when she heard it. The sound of tires on gravel. Multiple vehicles. Moving fast. The injured man's head snapped toward the window. His whole body tensed. The man by the door swore. Company. Through the glass, Riley saw headlights. 3 cars pulling into the parking lot, surrounding the SUV. Doors opening. Men stepping out. 6, maybe 8, all armed. The injured man stood slowly, his face hardening into something cold and absolute. "Back door," he said quietly. The others moved instantly, weapons appearing from nowhere. Riley's heart hammered. Her daughter's face flashed through her mind. Lily, asleep in the neighbor's apartment, waiting for Mommy to come home. The front door burst open. Asterisk, asterisk, but what happened next was the one thing nobody could explain. Asterisk, asterisk. Riley didn't think, didn't pause, didn't calculate odds or consequences or what it would cost her later. She moved. "Shut up and run away," she hissed at the injured man, grabbing his arm with a grip that surprised them both. "Kitchen. Now." His eyes met hers, shocked, questioning, but she was already pulling him toward the swinging door as the first gunman entered the diner. The others provided cover, weapons raised, shouting threats that Riley didn't process because all she heard was the roar of her own pulse and the memory of her daughter's laugh and the absolute certainty that if she did nothing, people would die tonight in her diner, and maybe one of them would be her. She shoved through the kitchen door with the injured man behind her. Roy stood frozen by the grill, spatula raised like a weapon. "Back exit," Riley gasped. "Go, go, Geo." Gunfire erupted in the dining room, sharp, deafening cracks that shattered glass and punched holes in walls. Riley didn't look back. She ran for the steel door at the rear of the kitchen that opened onto the alley behind the diner. The injured man moved beside her, no longer slow, no longer careful. Whatever pain he'd been managing was now secondary to survival. Roy hit the door first, throwing it open. Rain hammered down. The storm had arrived early, turning the alley into a river of runoff and reflected neon. "My truck," Roy shouted over the thunder. Blue Ford, 2 blocks east. He tossed Riley his keys and ran the opposite direction. A diversion, she realized with sudden horror, drawing attention away from them. Wait, she started, but Roy was already gone, disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness between buildings. The injured man grabbed her shoulder. Where's your car? I don't drive to work, Riley said, breathless. I walk. I live 6 blocks from here. Behind them, the gunfire intensified. Shouting, breaking glass. Someone screamed. Then we move on foot, he said. Now. They ran. Riley had grown up running. Running from bill collectors and angry landlords and boyfriends who got mean when they drank. She knew these streets. Knew which alleys connected, which fences you could climb, which yards had dogs. She led him east, away from the diner, cutting through the parking lot of a closed laundromat and down a residential street where houses sat dark and shuttered against the storm. Lightning split the sky. Thunder followed seconds later. Her shoes were soaked through. Her uniform clung to her skin. The man beside her breathed hard but kept pace, one hand still pressed to his wounded side. They ducked behind a dumpster as headlights swept past, one of the cars from the diner, hunting. Riley pressed herself against the wet metal, heart slamming against her ribs. The man crouched beside her, so close she could feel the heat radiating off him despite the cold rain. The car passed. Why did you help me? He asked quietly. Riley didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know if there was an answer that made sense. Because you would have died, she finally said. And I've seen enough people die in places that don't matter to people who don't care. He studied her face in the darkness. Rain dripped from his hair. Blood still seeped through his shirt. You have somewhere safe we can go. Riley thought of her apartment, of Lily, of everything she'd built from nothing in a life that was already so fragile one bad night could shatter it completely. She thought of walking away, letting him disappear into the storm, pretending tonight never happened. But she'd already chosen. Yeah, she said. Follow me. They moved through backyards and side streets, staying in shadows, avoiding lights. Riley's neighborhood wasn't much. Run-down apartment complexes and houses that should have been condemned years ago, but it was hers. She knew every corner. Her building was a 3-story walk-up with peeling paint and a lobby door that didn't lock properly. She pushed through, glancing back to make sure they weren't followed, then led him up the stairs to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3F. The number hung crooked on the door. Her hand shook as she unlocked it. Inside, the apartment was exactly what it looked like from the outside. Small, worn, held together by stubbornness and determination. A couch with a blanket thrown over the torn cushions. A kitchen the size of a closet. Toys scattered on the floor, evidence of the daughter Riley had left with the neighbor. The man stepped inside and Riley locked the door behind them, throwing the deadbolt and the chain. For a moment, they just stood there, dripping rain onto her cheap carpet, breathing hard, the reality of what she'd just done settling over her like weight. Sit, she said, gesturing to the couch. I'll get the first aid kit. He lowered himself carefully, jaw tight with pain. Riley disappeared into the bathroom and returned with a plastic box filled with bandages, antiseptic, and supplies she'd learned to keep stocked because emergency rooms cost money she didn't have. She knelt in front of him. Jacket off. Shirt too. He complied without argument, peeling away the soaked fabric to reveal the wound, a deep gash just below his ribs, still bleeding but not as bad as she'd feared. Knife? She asked. Bullet, he corrected. Grazed. Could have been Weiss. Riley cleaned the wound with steady hands, years of patching up her daughter's scraped knees translating into something more serious now. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. What's your name? She asked as she worked. A pause. Then, Ethan. Riley. I know, he said. Your name tag. She glanced up. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but not cold. Not anymore. Who are those men? She asked. The ones trying to kill you. People who think I have something they want. Do you? Not anymore. Riley taped the bandage in place. And your guys back at the diner. They'll handle it. Or they won't. Either way, they knew what they signed up for. She sat back on her heels. You're not a good person, are you? Ethan met her eyes. No. Then why did I just risk my life to save yours? Because you're a better person than I am, he said quietly. And you saw someone dying and couldn't walk away. Riley stood, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the shakes and the terrible understanding of what she'd done. You can't stay here, she said. I have a daughter. She's with the neighbor tonight, but she comes home in the morning and I can't. I understand, Ethan said. He started to stand, winced, sat back down. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, moving toward the diner. Riley walked to the window and looked out at the rain-soaked street below. Red and blue lights reflected off wet pavement 2 blocks over. They'll question everyone, she said. The diner staff, witnesses. They'll find out I left with you. Then you tell them the truth, Ethan said behind her. A customer got hurt. You panicked. You ran. You don't know anything else. Will they believe me? Does it matter? Riley closed her eyes. Everything she'd built, this apartment, this job, this life, was about to come crashing down. She could feel it, the way you can feel a tornado coming before you see it. I should have just let you die, she whispered. Yes, Ethan agreed. You should have. She turned to face him. He was watching her with something that might have been regret or respect or exhaustion too deep for words. If this story has already found a place in your heart, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below for more stories that stay long after they end. The rain continued to fall. The sirens grew louder. And Riley Hart realized with terrible clarity that her ordinary world was gone forever. By dawn, Riley's life had changed in ways she couldn't have predicted. Ethan made a phone call, one single call from a phone he pulled from somewhere, and within an hour, 3 men in dark suits arrived at her apartment building. Not the same men from the diner. These were different, quieter, professional. They swept her apartment for listening devices. They checked her windows, her locks, her sightlines. They spoke in coded language she didn't understand. And then one of them, a man named Fisher with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too much, sat down across from Riley at her tiny kitchen table and explained, very calmly, that her life was now in danger. The people who came after Mr. Cole tonight won't stop, Fisher said. They have resources. They have reach. And by helping him, you've become a target. Riley's coffee went cold in her hands. I didn't know. It doesn't matter what you knew, Fisher interrupted, not unkindly. It matters what they think you know. And right now, they think you're connected to him. So what am I supposed to do? Riley's voice cracked. I have a daughter. I have a job. I can't just disappear. Ethan appeared in the doorway, freshly bandaged, wearing a clean shirt someone had brought. His face was drawn but determined. You'll come with me, he said. Both of you, until this is resolved. Come with you where? Somewhere safe. Riley laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Safe? You don't even know me. Why would you? Because you saved my life, Ethan said simply. And I pay my debts. She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, wanted to believe she had a choice. But when Fisher laid out the alternative, staying here, exposed, with men hunting her who wouldn't hesitate to hurt a child to make a point, Riley felt the walls closing in. She thought of Lily, 6 years old, asthma inhaler in her backpack, favorite stuffed rabbit named Button, the way she laughed when Riley read her bedtime stories. How long? Riley asked quietly. I don't know, Ethan admitted. Weeks, maybe a month. And my daughter will be safe. Safer than she is here. Riley closed her eyes, felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down like the Oklahoma sky before a tornado. She'd spent her whole life making sacrifices, but this was different. This was stepping into a world she didn't understand with a man she didn't know and hoping it wouldn't destroy them both. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." By noon, they were gone. Fisher retrieved Lily from the neighbor with a story about a family emergency. The little girl clutched Button and looked at the serious men with wide eyes but didn't cry. Riley held her hand so tight she worried she'd bruise it. They drove south in a convoy of black vehicles, 2 in front, 1 behind, through Oklahoma countryside that turned to Texas plains. Lily slept against Riley's shoulder. Ethan sat across from them, watching the highway through tinted windows. They didn't speak much. What was there to say? By evening, they reached a house outside Dallas. Not a house, an estate. Gated, guarded, sprawling across land that went on forever. The main residence was modern, all glass and steel in angles that caught the sunset. It looked like something from a magazine. Like something Riley would have scrolled past on her phone and never imagined seeing in person. "This is yours?" she asked as they pulled up the long driveway. "One of several," Ethan said, "but the most secure." Inside, the house was beautiful in a way that felt alien to Riley. Marble floors, high ceilings, furniture that probably cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. Everything clean and sharp and carefully curated. A woman in her 50s appeared, Mrs. Chen, the house manager. She was efficient, professional, and kind. She showed Riley and Lily to their rooms on the 2nd floor. 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom, both larger than Riley's entire apartment. "If you need anything," Mrs. Chen said, "just ask. There's staff on site 24 hours. Riley nodded numbly. Lily pressed close to her side, overwhelmed and silent. When Mrs. Chen left, Riley sank onto the bed and pulled her daughter into her lap. "Hey," she whispered. "You okay, baby?" Lily nodded against her chest. "Why are we here, Mama?" "Because we're helping a friend," Riley lied. "Just for a little while." "Is this his house?" "Yes." "It's really big." "Yeah," Riley agreed, looking around at the room that could have held 3 of their old apartments. "Yeah, it is." That night, Riley couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of her room, looking out over manicured grounds lit by security lights, and felt like she'd been swallowed by a world that didn't want her. Below, she could see guards patrolling. Cameras on every corner. Walls high enough to keep the world out, or keep them in. A knock at her door made her jump. "Come in," she said quietly, not wanting to wake Lily in the next room. Ethan entered. He'd showered, changed. The wound in his side was hidden beneath a dark t-shirt. "Settling in?" he asked. Riley laughed softly. "Is that what you call this?" He moved to stand beside her at the window. For a moment, they both just looked out at the Texas night. "I know this isn't easy," Ethan said. "Being here, trusting me." "I don't trust you," Riley replied honestly. "I don't even know you." "Faye. But I believe you when you say my daughter's safer here than she was in Tulsa," Riley continued. "So I'm staying. For now." Ethan nodded. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you got dragged into this." "Are you?" He considered that. "Yes. You didn't deserve it." "What did you do?" Riley asked suddenly. "To make them want you dead?" "I left," Ethan said simply. "And I took something with me when I went." "What?" "Information. About men who thought they were untouchable." Riley turned to look at him. "You were one of them." "Yes." "And now?" "Now I'm trying to make sure they go down without taking half the country with them." It sounded crazy. It sounded like a movie. But looking at his face, at the exhaustion and determination carved into features too young to hold that much weight, Riley believed him. "How long have you been running?" she asked. 3 months. They found me in Chicago, then Boston, then Kansas City. I thought I'd shaken them in Tulsa." He smiled bitterly. "I was wrong. You almost died in my diner." "I know." And I threw away my entire life to drag you out the back door. I know. Riley crossed her arms. So now what? I just wait here while you figure out how to end this. While my daughter asks me every day when we can go home. Yes. The honesty of it stung worse than a lie would have. I hate this, Riley said quietly. I know. I hate you for dragging us into it. I know. She turned away from him, back to the window. Get out. Ethan didn't argue. He left as quietly as he'd come, closing the door with a soft click. Riley stood alone in the too-big room in the too-big house and felt smaller than she'd ever felt in her life. Asterisk asterisk, if you've ever felt torn between fear and the promise of safety, you'll understand her. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Asterisk asterisk. Outside, Texas stretched away into darkness, and Riley wondered if she'd ever see Oklahoma again. The days developed a rhythm that Riley both craved and resented. Mornings started with Lily waking her at dawn, the little girl's energy unchanged despite their strange new circumstances. They'd eat breakfast in a kitchen bigger than most restaurants. Mrs. Chen always had something prepared, always smiled warmly at Lily's shy requests for pancakes or scrambled eggs. Ethan was usually gone by then. Business, Fisher would say when Riley asked. Important meetings. She didn't press, didn't want to know. She'd spend the mornings with Lily, exploring the grounds under the watchful eyes of security. There was a pool Lily loved, gardens she'd run through, space to play that their apartment in Tulsa had never offered. Riley told herself it was good for her daughter, told herself this wasn't so bad. The lies got easier with repetition. Afternoons, Lily would nap or watch movies in the entertainment room, a space with a screen the size of Riley's old bedroom wall. Riley would find herself wandering the house, feeling like a ghost in someone else's life. The library became her refuge. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books that actually got read, not the kind rich people collected for decoration. She'd curl up in a leather chair by the window and lose herself in stories about people whose problems felt manageable compared to her own. Ethan returned most evenings, sometimes early, sometimes late. When he was there, they'd have dinner together, Riley, Lily, and him, sitting at one end of a table built for 12. It felt absurd. Lily chatted about her day. Ethan listened with surprising patience. Riley pushed food around her plate and wondered how this had become normal. Tell Mr. Cole about the butterfly we saw, Riley would prompt, and Lily would launch into an excited description while Ethan nodded seriously, like it was the most important thing he'd heard all day. One evening, after Lily had been put to bed, Riley found Ethan in his study, a room lined with dark wood and expensive art that probably cost more than her daughter's college fund would ever hold. She's happy here, Riley said from the doorway. Ethan looked up from his laptop. That's good. She shouldn't be, Riley continued, stepping inside. She should be asking when we're going home. But she's 6, and there's a pool, and someone makes her favorite foods every day, and she doesn't understand that we're essentially prisoners. You're not prisoners. No. Riley crossed her arms. Can I leave? You can go anywhere on the property. Can I leave the property? Can I drive to the store? Can I call my friends? Can I go back to work? She didn't raise her voice, didn't want to wake Lily, but the anger leaked through anyway. Can I have any part of my life back? Ethan set down his pen carefully. Not yet. When? I don't know. That's not good enough. I know. He stood, moved around the desk. Up close, she could see the exhaustion he hid well, dark circles under his eyes, tension in his shoulders. I'm working on it. Every day. But these people, he stopped, started again. They are connected. Federal level. International level. Taking them down means doing it right, which means doing it slowly. While my life sits on pause. Yes. Riley wanted to scream. Wanted to throw something. Wanted to demand he fix this now. Immediately. Consequences be damned. Instead, she just felt tired. I had a friend back in Tulsa, she said quietly. Marie. She watched Lily sometimes when I had double shifts. She's probably worried sick. Probably thinks something happened to us. Fisher sent word you had a family emergency. Had to leave quickly. Did he mention when I'd be back? No. Riley nodded slowly. Of course not. She turned to leave. Riley. She stopped but didn't look back. I'm sorry, Ethan said, and he sounded like he meant it. The weeks passed. Riley watched Texas summer turn the grounds golden. Watched Lily grow comfortable in luxury that should have felt wrong but somehow didn't. Watched herself adapt to a life she'd never chosen. Fisher gave her updates when she asked. The investigation was progressing. Evidence was being gathered. Testimony secured. The people who wanted Ethan dead were being cycled. Slowly, carefully. How much longer? Riley asked every time. Soon, Fisher always replied. Which meant nothing. She started noticing things about Ethan. Small things. The way he'd check the security monitors before bed. The phone calls he'd take outside, voice low, shoulders tense. The nights he didn't sleep at all, working in his study until dawn. He was hunting them while they hunted him. A game of chess played with lives. One night, Riley woke at 2 a.m. to sounds from downstairs. She pulled on a robe and descended quietly, found Ethan in the kitchen, making coffee with hands that shook slightly. Can't sleep? She asked. He turned, startled. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I'm a light sleeper. She moved to the counter. Occupational hazard of single parenthood. Coffee? Sure. They sat at the island, the same one where Lily ate breakfast every morning, and drank in comfortable silence. Can I ask you something? Riley said eventually. Maybe. Why did you leave? The organization, the people, whatever it was. You had power, money. Why risk it? Ethan stayed into his cup. Because I watched them destroy innocent people and I realized I was one of them. And I couldn't live with that anymore. So you decided to become a martyr instead. I decided to try to fix what I helped break. Riley studied his profile. That's very noble. Doesn't change the fact that you've dragged me and my daughter into your war. No, he agreed. It doesn't. Do you regret it? That night at the diner. Coming there? Yes. You helping me? He looked at her then. No. Why not? Because meeting you reminded me what I was fighting for. Real people. Real lives. Not just abstract justice. Riley didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if she believed it or if it was just words. The kind men spoke when they wanted to feel better about their choices. If your heart's racing too, take a breath. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below for more unforgettable love stories. But sitting there in the dark kitchen in a house that wasn't hers, drinking coffee with a man who'd turned her world inside out, Riley felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not trust, but maybe understanding. My daughter deserves better than this, she said quietly. I know. She deserves a normal life. School with her friends. Our apartment. Her toys. Her life. I know. So fix it, Riley said. Please, fix it so we can go home. Ethan's jaw tightened. I'm trying. Riley finished her coffee and stood. At the doorway, she paused. For what it's worth, I hope you survive this. I hope they don't kill you. Because if they do, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if saving you was the biggest mistake I ever made. She left him there in the kitchen, alone with his guilt and his war. Back in her room, Riley checked on Lily, still sleeping, button clutched tight, and realized with sudden clarity that she didn't hate Ethan. She wanted to. It would be easier. But somewhere between Tulsa and Texas, between running and surviving, he'd become something more complicated than an enemy. He'd become human, and that terrified her more than anything else. It happened on a Thursday. Riley was in the garden with Lily, watching her daughter chase butterflies through flowers that probably cost more to maintain than Riley used to make in a month, when Fisher appeared with an expression that made her stomach drop. "Inside," he said quietly. "Now." Riley grabbed Lily's hand. "What's wrong?" "Mrs. Chen will take Lily to the playroom. You need to come with me." Every instinct screamed danger. Riley knelt in front of her daughter, forced a smile. "Hey, baby, can you go with Mrs. Chen? Mama has to talk to the grown-ups for a minute." "But I was playing." "I know, sweetheart. Just a few minutes, okay." Lily pouted but allowed herself to be led away. Riley watched until they disappeared into the house, then turned to Fisher. "What happened?" "Someone leaked your location." The world tilted. "What?" "We don't know who yet," Fisher said, already moving toward the house. "Could be someone on our staff. Could be external surveillance we missed. But the people hunting Ethan now know you're here." Riley's legs felt weak. "How long do we have?" "Hours. Maybe less." Inside, the house had transformed. Men in tactical gear checked weapons. Security monitors showed feeds from every angle. Ethan stood in the center of it all, issuing commands with military precision. He saw Riley and his expression changed. Something flashed across his face too fast to identify. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. "Get her upstairs," he said to Fisher. "Both of them. They stay in the safe room until we clear this." "The hell we do," Riley said, finding her voice. "If someone's coming here because of me, I deserve to know what's happening." "What's happening is people with guns and bad intentions now know where you sleep," Ethan said bluntly. "And they are coming. So you're going to take your daughter to the reinforced room on the 3rd floor, and you're going to stay there until I tell you it's safe. And if it's not safe, if they get through, they won't. You don't know that." Ethan crossed to her, lowered his voice. "Riley, I have handled situations like this dozens of times. I have resources, training, and people who are very good at their jobs. But I need you to not fight me on this. Please." She wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, control, something. But Lily's face flashed through her mind. Scared, crying, asking why bad men were coming. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Fisher led her upstairs. The safe room was exactly what it sounded like. Reinforced walls, secure door, supplies for several days if needed. Mrs. Chen had already brought Lily there. The little girl sat on a couch, clutching button, eyes wide. "What's happening, Mama?" Riley pulled her close. "Just some safety stuff, baby. We're going to stay in this special room for a while, okay? Like a fort." "I don't like forts." "I know, but Mr. Cole needs us to stay here. Can you be brave for me?" Lily nodded against her chest. Fisher checked the locks, the monitors, the supplies. "You'll be able to see what's happening through these screens," he said, gesturing to the wall of monitors showing various angles of the property. "But stay quiet. Stay calm. We'll come get you when it's clear." "And if you don't come?" Riley asked. Fisher met her eyes. "Then you follow the exit protocol in the manual on that desk. It'll get you out through the underground passage to a vehicle 3 miles north. Keys are in the desk. Drive to the coordinates programmed in the GPS. Someone will meet you there." Riley's throat tightened. "You're talking about evacuation." "I'm talking about contingency. We won't need it." He left. The door sealed with a heavy thunk. Riley and Lily sat in the too quiet room, watching monitors that showed men taking positions around the property. Ethan stood near the main entrance, weapon in hand, face hard with concentration. "Why are there bad men, Mama?" Lily asked quietly. "Because Mr. Cole knows things they don't want him to tell people." "Why?" "Because they did bad things and they don't want to get in trouble." Lily processed that with 6-year-old logic. "That's dumb. Everyone gets in trouble when they do bad things." "Not everyone, baby." "They should." "Yeah," Riley agreed, pulling her closer. They should. The wait was torture. Minutes stretched into hours. On the monitors, Riley watched the sunset. Watched security lights activate. Watched men patrol in patterns she was starting to recognize. Then, just after 10 p.m., the monitors lit up with movement. Vehicles approached from 2 directions, 4 from the south, 3 from the east. Fast, coordinated. Riley's heart hammered. She covered Lily's ears as the first shots rang out, audible even through the reinforced walls. On screen, chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. Men took cover, returned fire. The tactical precision of both sides was terrifying. This wasn't random violence. This was professional warfare. Riley couldn't look away, couldn't breathe. She watched Ethan move through the firefight like he'd been born to it, taking cover behind vehicles, directing his people, utterly calm in the storm. Someone breached the main gate. More men poured in. The fighting intensified. Then the monitors went dark. "Mama." Lily's voice was small, scared. "It's okay, baby. Just the cameras." An explosion rocked the house. Lily screamed. Riley held her, listening to the sounds of destruction somewhere below them. Glass shattering, walls cracking, the structure groaning. More gunfire. Closer now. Riley's hands shook as she moved to the desk, pulled out the manual Fisher mentioned. Found the exit protocol. Read it 3 times, trying to memorize details through sheer panic. The safe room door was built to withstand anything. But listening to the battle rage outside, Riley wondered how long anything would last. If your heart's racing too, take a breath. And don't forget to comment, subscribe, and check the description box below for more unforgettable love stories. She pulled Lily into her lap, covered her daughter's ears, and prayed to a God she'd stopped believing in years ago. Please, please let us survive this. Please let Lily be okay. The fighting went on for 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. Then, gradually, silence fell. Riley waited, listened, heard nothing but her own heartbeat and Lily's soft crying against her chest. Then footsteps in the hallway. Approaching the door, Riley grabbed the gun Fisher had left in the desk. She'd never fired one, barely knew which end was dangerous, and positioned herself between the door and her daughter. "Riley." Ethan's voice through the steel. "It's me. We're clear. You can come out." She didn't move. Didn't trust it. "Riley, please. It's over." Slowly, she unlocked the door. It swung open. Ethan stood there, covered in dust and blood, not all of it his. Behind him, the house was devastated. Walls cracked. Furniture destroyed. The smell of smoke and gunpowder thick in the air. "Are they gone?" Riley whispered. "Yes." "Are you sure?" "Yes." She looked past him, at the destruction. "Your house." "Doesn't matter," Ethan said. "You're both safe. That's what matters." Lily peeked out from behind Riley. "Mr. Cole." He knelt, bringing himself to her eye level. "Hey, kiddo. You okay?" Lily nodded, then burst into tears. Ethan looked at Riley, helpless, questioning. Riley understood. Men like him knew how to handle violence, threats, warfare. 6-year-olds crying because they'd been terrified. Different skill set. Riley scooped Lily up. "It's okay, baby. We're safe now. Mr. Cole kept us safe." But looking at the wreckage of the house, at the bodies being carried out by men in tactical gear, at Ethan's face drawn with exhaustion and something that might have been grief, Riley wondered if safe was just another lie she was telling herself. They left that night. What remained of Ethan's team-packed essentials, clothes, documents, supplies, into vehicles that had survived the assault. Fisher drove. Ethan sat in front, phone pressed to his ear, coordinating something with someone. Riley held Lily in the back seat, the little girl finally asleep, exhausted by tears and fear. They drove west through the Texas darkness, leaving behind the shell of the house and whatever peace Riley had managed to find there. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly, not wanting to wake Lily. Somewhere they won't find us, Ethan replied without turning around. You said that before. He didn't answer. They ended up in New Mexico, a compound even more remote than the Texas house, built into the landscape like it was trying to disappear. Adobe walls, small windows, everything designed for defense rather than display. It was beautiful in a harsh way, but Riley was tired of beautiful cages. The first week passed in a blur. Lily clung to Riley constantly, nightmares waking her multiple times each night. Riley held her daughter and whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Everything's going to be okay. We're safe here. It'll all be over soon. Ethan threw himself into work with renewed intensity. Riley would see him in meetings that lasted until dawn, phone calls in languages she didn't recognize, plans being made and remade as circumstances shifted. She felt invisible, a ghost haunting someone else's war. One evening, she found him alone on the roof of the compound, looking out over desert that stretched to the horizon. The sunset painted everything gold and crimson, beautiful and alien. Riley climbed up, uninvited, stood beside him without speaking. "How's Lily?" he asked eventually. "Scared. She has nightmares now. Wakes up asking if the bad men are coming back." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" Riley turned to face him. "Because from where I'm standing, you knew this could happen. You knew bringing us into your world would put us in danger, and you did it anyway." "I didn't think they'd find us so quickly," Ethan said. "I thought I had more time." "Time for what? To what? Fix everything? Make it all better? We've been running for almost 2 months now and nothing's changed. We're still hiding. They're still hunting. My daughter still cries herself to sleep." "I know." "Then end it," Riley said. "Whatever this is, this investigation, this war, just end it. Turn yourself in. Give them what they want. Do whatever you have to do so Lily and I can go home." Ethan's jaw tightened. "If I give them what they want, more people die. Not just you and Lily. Dozens of people who trusted me. Hundreds of people who will suffer if these men stay in power." "I don't care about hundreds of people," Riley said, and she meant it. "I care about my daughter. That's it. That's all that matters to me." "I understand." "Do you?" She stepped closer. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your child suffer because of choices you made? To hold her while she cries and know it's your fault?" "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "I do." Something in his voice stopped Riley's anger cold. "I had a sister," he continued, still looking at the desert. "Younger. I was supposed to protect her. That's what big brothers do, right?" A bitter laugh. "But I got involved with the wrong people. Made deals I shouldn't have made. And they used her to keep me in line. Held her safety over my head like a weapon." Riley waited. "She was 17 when they killed her," Ethan said. "Car accident. That's what the police report said. But I knew better. She'd threatened to go to the authorities about what she'd learned. And they couldn't let that happen." "Ethan." "So yes," he interrupted, voice rough. "I know what it's like to watch someone you love suffer because of your choices. I live with it every day." Silence stretched between them, heavy with shared grief. "I didn't know," Riley said finally. "Why would you? I don't talk about it." He turned to face her. "But that's why I'm doing this. Not for abstract justice or noble causes. Because I couldn't save her. And if I can stop even one more person from dying the way she did, then maybe it means something. Maybe she didn't die for nothing." Riley understood then, really understood, what drove him. It wasn't heroism. It was penance. "You can't save everyone," she said softly. "Not even close." "I know, but I can try. Even if it costs you everything." "Especially then." They stood together as the sun finished setting, painting the desert in shades of loss and longing. And Riley felt the anger inside her shift into something more complicated. Still present, still valid, but accompanied by an empathy she didn't want to feel. He was just as trapped as she was, just in a different kind of cage. Over the following days, Riley noticed changes. Ethan started spending more time with Lily, coaxing smiles from her with bad jokes and patient attention. He taught her card games, let her win at chess, read her bedtime stories when Riley was too exhausted to keep her eyes open. And Lily, resilient the way children are, began to heal. The nightmares came less frequently, the smiles more easily. Riley watched them together one evening, Ethan and Lily building a house of cards on the floor, Lily giggling when it collapsed, Ethan pretending dramatic despair, and felt something crack open in her chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to see him as anything other than the man who'd destroyed her life. But watching him with her daughter, seeing the genuine affection in his eyes, the careful gentleness in his hands, Riley couldn't deny what she felt anymore. She didn't hate him. She might never forgive him for what he'd cost her. But somewhere between Tulsa and Texas and New Mexico, between terror and exhaustion and survival, he'd become important. He'd become someone she couldn't imagine losing. And that realization terrified her more than any attack ever could. *** before we close this chapter, take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below. Every small gesture helps the next story find its way to you. Because caring about Ethan meant vulnerability. It meant the pain wouldn't end when this was over. It meant her heart was in danger alongside her life. And Riley had spent too many years protecting her heart to give it away easily. But as she watched him lift Lily onto his shoulders, listened to her daughter's delighted laughter echo through the compound, Riley wondered if maybe, just maybe, some risks were worth taking. Even the ones that might break you. 3 weeks later, everything changed again. Fisher arrived at the compound with news that shifted the foundation of their world. The investigation was complete. Evidence gathered. Testimonies secured. Warrants issued. The people who'd been hunting Ethan were about to be arrested. A coordinated operation spanning 7 states and 3 federal agencies. By morning, the threat would be neutralized. Riley and Lily could go home. She should have felt relief. Should have felt joy. Should have immediately started packing, calling her friend Marie, planning their return to the life they'd left behind. Instead, she felt hollow. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Riley found Ethan on the roof again. Their spot. She'd started thinking of it, though she'd never said that aloud. Fisher told me, she said, sitting beside him. Yeah. It's really over. As over as these things get. There'll be trials, appeals, but the immediate danger is gone. Riley nodded, looked out at the New Mexico desert under a sky full of stars you could never see in Tulsa. I should be happy. But you're not. I don't know what I am. They sat in silence. Then Ethan spoke. I've arranged everything for your return. New apartment, better neighborhood, safer. All your debts cleared. Fund set up for Lily's education. You'll never have to work 2 jobs again. You're buying my forgiveness. I'm paying what I owe. You don't owe me anything, Riley said. I made a choice that night at the diner. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe I saved the wrong person. But it was my choice. Then accept it as a gift. Why? Because he stopped. Started again. Because you and Lily deserve a chance. The kind of chance my sister never got. The kind of chance I ruined for myself years ago. You could have a chance too, Riley said quietly. The threats are gone. You could start over. Be someone other than the man who gave up everything for revenge. It wasn't revenge. Wasn't it? Ethan didn't answer. Riley drew her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Felt like a girl again. Young, scared, hoping for things she knew better than to want. I don't want to go back, she said. The words came out before she could stop them. What? I said I don't want to go back to Tulsa. To my old life. To pretending the last 2 months didn't happen. She looked at him. I don't want to leave you. Ethan's face went carefully blank. Riley. I know it's crazy, she continued, the words tumbling out now. I know you've turned my life upside down. I know you're dangerous and complicated and probably the last person I should care about. But I do. I care about you. And Lily cares about you. And the thought of going back to Oklahoma and never seeing you again makes me feel like I'm losing something I didn't know I needed. You barely know me. I know you saved my daughter's life more than once. I know you read her bedtime stories even though you're exhausted. I know you carry guilt that's eating you alive and you're trying to make up for things that weren't your fault. I know you're the kind of person who'd throw away everything to try to save people you've never met. She moved closer. I know enough. Riley, I can't. He stopped, jaw tight. You deserve normal. Safe. Someone who doesn't come with a target on his back and blood on his hands. Maybe I don't want normal, Riley said. Maybe I've had normal my whole life and all it got me was struggling and scared and alone. Maybe I want something different. Even if it's complicated. Even if it's hard. You have Lily to think about. Lily loves you. You know that, right? She asks about you when you're gone. Saves drawings for you. Lights up when you come home. That's not. She lost her father before she could remember him, Riley interrupted. And she's scared of most men because of the ones who came through my life after. But not you. She trusts you. And if you think I'm going to take her away from the first man who's ever made her feel safe, you don't know me at all. Ethan stood abruptly, moved to the edge of the roof. I can't do this. Can't let you base your life around me. It's not fair to you. Since when do you get to decide what's fair to me? Riley stood too, facing him across the space. I'm a grown woman. I've survived things that would break most people. And I'm telling you what I want. The least you can do is listen. What you want will put you back in danger. Living is dangerous, Riley said. I figured that out a long time ago. Bad things happen to good people all the time. You can't protect everyone. You can't control everything. Sometimes you just have to choose what you're willing to risk. And you'd risk everything? Your safety? Your daughter's future? For what? For me? Yes, Riley said simply. For you. The word hung between them like a promise or a threat. Ethan stared at her with something that looked like pain. Why? Because somewhere between running and surviving and being terrified, I fell in love with you, Riley said. And I don't know when it happened or how, but it did. And I can't take it back now even if I wanted to. She'd said it, the thing she'd been afraid to even think. And now it was out there, real and undeniable. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were full of something Riley couldn't name. You don't love me. You love the idea of me. The man who saved you. It's not real. Don't tell me what I feel, Riley said, voice hard. I know the difference between gratitude and love, between trauma bonding and genuine connection. And what I feel when I look at you isn't any of those things. It's deeper, scarier, more real than anything I've ever felt. Riley. She crossed to him, took his face in her hands. You're allowed to be happy, Ethan. You're allowed to let someone care about you. Your sister would want that. She wouldn't want you destroying yourself for penance that'll never be enough. You don't know what she'd want. I know what every person who loves someone wants. For them to live, to find peace, to stop carrying guilt that isn't theirs to carry. Ethan's hands came up to cover hers. If I let you stay, if I let myself want this, I'll never forgive myself if something happens to you. Then don't let something happen to me, Riley said. Fight for this. Fight for us. The way you fought for justice. The way you fought to protect us. Fight for the chance to be happy. I don't know if I remember how. Then let me teach you. The desert wind moved around them, carrying the scent of sage and possibility. Above, stars wheeled in ancient patterns. And then Ethan kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, questioning, then deeper, like a man drowning who'd finally found air, like coming home after years of being lost. Riley kissed him back with everything she had. All her fear and hope and desperate love poured into that moment. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said quietly. "I've loved you since you grabbed my arm in that diner and told me to shut up and run. I just didn't think I was allowed to feel it." "You're allowed," Riley whispered. "We're both allowed." They stood together under the New Mexico sky, two people who'd survived impossible things, holding onto each other like lifelines. And for the first time since that night in Tulsa, Riley felt like she could breathe. Asterisk. Approx. 1,528 words. Asterisk. #**** Chapter 8. The Quiet Aftermath ****. 6 months later, Riley stood in the kitchen of a house she still couldn't quite believe was hers. Not in Tulsa. Not in Texas. Not in New Mexico. Colorado. A town outside Denver where the mountains rose like promises on the horizon and the air was thin and clean. A place where nobody knew their story, where they could start fresh. The house was modest by Ethan's standards. 3 bedrooms, a yard for Lily, a porch where Riley could drink her morning coffee and watch the sunrise. But it was theirs. Chosen together. Built together. A home, not a cage. Lily's laughter drifted in from the living room where she and Ethan were building another house of cards. She was 7 now, taller, her nightmares mostly gone. She went to a good school where teachers knew her as just Lily, not a girl who'd survived things she shouldn't have had to. Riley finished making dinner, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad, the kind of meal she used to dream about having time to cook properly. Through the window, she could see autumn touching the aspens, turning them gold. They'd rebuilt. Slowly, carefully. Ethan had testified the trials. Watched men he'd once worked with get sentenced to decades in prison. Felt the weight of his sister's memory settle into something that wasn't quite peace but wasn't torment either. He'd started a foundation in her name, helping families affected by organized crime, giving them the resources they needed to escape, to survive, to rebuild. Turning his guilt into something that mattered. Riley had gone back to school. Online classes at first, fitting them in around Lily's schedule. She'd discovered she liked psychology, liked understanding why people did the things they did. Maybe someday she'd be a counselor, help people who'd been through trauma. But for now, she was just happy being here. Being safe, being loved. "Dinner's ready," she called. Ethan appeared in the doorway, Lily on his shoulders, both of them laughing about something. "We built it 12 layers high this time," Lily announced proudly. "Before you called and startled Mr. Ethan and he knocked it over." "My fault entirely," Ethan agreed solemnly, lifting her down. "I have terrible reflexes." "You do not. You're like a ninja." "The worst ninja in history, clearly." They sat at the table, the 3 of them, like they had so many times before. But different now. Lighter. The shadows still there but not as heavy. After dinner, Riley did dishes while Ethan helped Lily with her homework. Through the doorway, she could hear them debating math problems, Lily insisting she was right, Ethan gently guiding her to see where she'd made a mistake. He was good at that. Patient. Kind. Nothing like the man he'd been before she met him, according to Fisher. That man had been hard, cold, dangerous. This man read bedtime stories and made terrible jokes and built houses of cards with a 7-year-old. Riley supposed they'd both changed. She wasn't the exhausted waitress counting tips anymore, praying to make rent. She was someone who'd survived impossible things and come out stronger. Later, after Lily was asleep, Riley and Ethan sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching stars emerge over the mountains. "Fisher called today," Ethan said. "The last appeal was denied. It's really over." "How do you feel?" "I don't know. Empty, maybe. Like I've been holding my breath for years and suddenly don't know what to do with air." Riley took his hand. "You breathe. You live. You let yourself be happy." "I'm still figuring out what that looks like." "We both are." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Ethan spoke again. "I was thinking about something." "Yeah." Marie called last week. From Tulsa. Lily talked to her for an hour. I know. She was so excited. She asked when we were coming to visit. Riley turned to look at him. Do you want to go back? I think maybe we should, Ethan said. Not to stay, but to show Lily where she came from. To let you see your friends. To close that chapter properly instead of just running from it. You wouldn't mind. Why would I mind? Because Tulsa is where everything started. Where you almost died. It's also where I met you, Ethan said. Where you saved my life. Where everything changed. Maybe it's time to stop seeing it as the place I ran from and start seeing it as the place that gave me you. Riley felt tears prick her eyes. When did you get so wise? I have a very smart girlfriend. I learn from the best. Girlfriend, Riley repeated, smiling. We're a little old for that term, don't you think? What would you prefer? I don't know. Partner. Love of my life. That woman you can't live without. All accurate, Ethan agreed. He pulled her closer, though I was thinking maybe we could upgrade the terminology. Riley's heart skipped. What do you mean? Ethan shifted, reaching into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. I mean, he said, opening it to reveal a simple, perfect ring, that I'd like you to marry me, if you'll have me. Riley stared at the ring, at his face, at the life they'd built together from ashes and terror and impossible choices. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, kissed her softly, and Riley felt like she'd finally found the thing she'd been searching for her whole life without knowing what it was. Not safety, not stability, not even love. Exactly. Peace. The kind that comes after the storm. The kind you earn through surviving. The kind that exists not because everything is perfect, but because you've chosen to stop running. They would visit Tulsa. They would remember where they came from. They would honor the journey that had brought them here. But this, Colorado, the mountains, the house, the life they were building, this was home. I love you, Riley said against his chest. I love you too. Above them, stars wheeled in familiar patterns. The same stars that had watched them run, survive, fight, now watching them rest. And Riley thought about the girl she'd been 2 years ago, exhausted, scared, counting tips in a Tulsa diner and wondering if things would ever get better. She wished she could tell that girl what was coming. Not the terror or the danger or the impossible choices, but what came after. The man who'd hold her through nightmares. The daughter who'd grow up safe and loved. The life built from ruins. The quiet joy of ordinary moments after extraordinary survival. She'd never have believed it. Would have thought it was a lie, a fairy tale, something that happened to other people. But here it was. Real. Solid. His. If stories like this linger in your heart long after they end, don't leave just yet. Like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below. And let the next story find you when the night grows quiet again. The autumn wind moved through the pines. The mountains stood eternal. And Riley Hart, survivor, fighter, lover, held on to the man who'd changed everything and let herself believe in happy endings after all. Not the perfect kind. Not the kind without scars. But the kind that mattered. The kind that lasted. The kind you built one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. The kind that started with a waitress in a Tulsa diner, telling a dying man to shut up and run away, and ended here, in Colorado mountains, with love that conquered everything, even fear, even regret, even the past that tried so hard to destroy them. They'd survived, they'd won, and now they'd live, together,